Ever since I was a child, people said my family was cursed.
Understanding premise. Case study. The Iron Claw. What is premise? To understand what premise is, it helps to look at what premise is not. Quite often, premise can be too literal. Premise is not plot. At first glance, the Iron Claw appears to be about the true story of the Von Erichs, a renowned family of pro wrestlers who rose to the heights of the sport in the early 80s. However, their success is overshadowed, believing to be cursed by constant tragedy, leading to the inevitable demise of the family. This is not the premise of the film. This is the plot. As a storyteller, it's important to have a premise. Your job is to prove your premise. Remember, the proving of a premise indicates growth on the part of your characters. A premise leads you to the end goal of your story. It's something we accept as being true in order to reach a conclusion. So what is the premise of the Iron Claw? The premise of the story is one that actually resonates from biblical quotation. The sins of the father are visited on the children. It's important to note that there are many ways that a premise can be worded or phrased, but there can only ever be one premise. The opening of the film thrusts us into the world of professional wrestling. We meet Fritz Von Erich, the ultimate heel. Fritz is in his element, working the crowd. Once the lights dim, we're introduced to Jack Adkisson, the man behind the persona. Jack, deeply entrenched in the old school ways of wrestling, believes in working the gimmick. His devotion to wrestling eclipses all else. Leaving the auditorium, Jack surprises his family with a brand new Cadillac. However, the only thing wrong with the image is the family home being towed, attached to the back of the Cadillac. It's here that the premise begins to take shape. One thing is clear, Jack cares more about wrestling and his perception within the business than he does his own family. He will quite literally put wrestling before his family. He rules his household with an iron fist and leads his sons, Kevin, Kerry, Dave and Mike, down a familiar path. Their commitment to wrestling is unwavering, even when it leads to tragedy. It's here that I'd like to reword our premise more accurately. The sins of the father will be visited upon the son. In this case, the son is our protagonist, Kevin Adkisson. As the story unfolds, Kevin, the eldest brother, witnesses the toll their father's obsession takes on the family. Inevitably, Kevin is forced to watch as each of his younger brothers faces a tragic end. When Kerry, Kevin's younger brother, who after reaching the pinnacle of the sport in the WWF, calls Kevin to let him know that he's not okay, Kevin seeks the advice of his father and asks him to look out for Kerry.
You boys need to work it out between yourselves.
Just look out for him, okay, Dad?
Here, we find further development in our premise. Kevin relinquishes responsibility for Kerry's well-being to his father, the same father who has neglected his family's needs since the beginning of the story. Kerry's suicide serves as the breaking point for Kevin. The sins of the father will be visited upon the son. Kevin's trust was once again misplaced in his father. His inaction echoes that of his father's, and Kevin realizes the extent of their shared responsibility. He confronts his father, demanding accountability for Kerry's death.
I told you to look out for him! You didn't take care of him!
Ultimately, this is what forces Kevin to break free from his father's influence, selling the family's stake in the Texas wrestling promotion specifically against his father's wishes. Remember, the proving of a premise indicates growth on the part of your characters. Character plus conflict plus resolution equals premise. The son had to overcome the sins of the father. After separating from their mother, Jack passes away and Kevin comes full circle, becoming a father in his own right. Crying, Kevin's sons ask him why. He apologizes and says a man doesn't cry, clearly the words of his father speaking through him. Through tears and shared vulnerability with his sons, Kevin finds closure, overcoming the cycle of suffering that plagued his family. the sins of the father would be visited upon the son. Kevin's journey occurs as a result of his father's failings. Kevin overcomes his father and in turn, their curse.